Good morning, and welcome to Holy Revival Church here in the city of Compton, California. I am Pastor James. I am the pastor of this great church, and we are honored to have our guests with us today. We have a very informative legal workshop that's going to take place today, and one of my visions for Holy Revival is that we become a community, a church where the community can come to for not only spiritual needs, but personal and needs and everyday life, because that's what's needed. The church is supposed to, in my opinion, supposed to fulfill the needs of the community. A lot of people have it backwards. I'm not knocking anybody. I know this is live streaming and going out all over the world, but the church is not for you to serve the pastor. It's for the pastor to serve the church and the community. And that's what we do here at Holy Revival. We are a word-based church as well as a community church. We are a small church with a huge vision. You know, we just had a major concert here, and one of the guests came in and he commented on our sound system. And he said, man, it's nothing about this church is small. You guys have top of the line everything. And so I believe that's how we're supposed to do it. And God has blessed us to be able to do it. And I always honor God. I don't care what it is. If it's a sporting event, if it's a legal clinic, we had a first-time home buyers seminar here. I always start with prayer and always give God thanks, because this is his property and I consider it holy ground. We may be in Compton and people have heard all kind of things about Compton, but this is holy ground right here. And so if you will, and even if you're watching, if you just stop what you're doing and take a moment and just bow, and we're going to pray and ask God's blessing on this event today. And I know it's already blessed, but I know somebody is going to hear something and receive something that is going to be life-changing for them. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us already. Lord, just the fact that you woke us up this morning is a blessing. The fact that we have the activities of our limbs, we're in our right mind, we can see, our eyes were able to focus this morning. God, we thank you this morning. And I pray, Father, that you will touch those that are hearing this, those that are in the sanctuary, Lord. I pray that they will receive from you today a word, Lord, a word of knowledge. You said in your word, God, that your people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge, Lord, and that knowledge comes from various sources, and we are honored to be able to share knowledge with the community and the world via the World Wide Web. I ask you, Father, to bless this event, bless everyone that walks through the doors, everyone that tunes in, and everyone that even sees it in the future. God, continue to bless this law firm, continue to bless our guests today, Lord. I ask that you bless their homes, their families, Lord. Father, let them have an experience here in Holy Revival that they have never had before. And Father, I pray, Lord, for my Brother Joe, Lord, that you continue to use him in a great and mighty way. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. So because I'm not a lawyer, and a whole bunch of people here way smarter than me, I'm going to introduce my brother. And I was just telling the story how years ago, a very beautiful young lady by the name of Joy Richardson, his sister, And we all grew up at the same church, Academy Cathedral, under the leadership of Pastor Doyle Hart. And anybody that know me know I'm not going to do anything and not mention Pastor Hart. For 40 years I sat under Pastor Hart. And Pastor Hart is in heaven now. And well, one Sunday, Joy came to me and she said, Brother James, my brother is coming home from college and you need to hook up with him. I'm Mr. Black Entertainment Magazine. I don't need to hook up with nobody. They need to hook up with me. So the second week, Joy came to me again. Brother James, I need you to hook up with my brother. When he come home, I'm like, Joy, whatever. The third week, Brother James, I want you to talk to him. I'm like, all right, Joy, just leave me alone. Just tell him to call me when he get home. And that was 30 years ago, I guess. I don't know, but Joe and I connected then, and we have had some adventures. And when Joe reached out to me and asked me could the event be held at the church, I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't have to ask the board members. I didn't have to ask anybody. I just said yes. Just tell me the date, what you want, when you want to do it. It's done. Anytime you need the church, it's done. And I believe that's how friends are supposed to be towards one another. And he is my friend and my brother. And so at this time, is it Joe Richardson, Esquire? Is that how you introduce attorney? My brother, Brother Joseph Richardson, Esquire.
Oh boy. So, I had to start here because our pastor was emotional too, and I learned that it was a strength. And there's a lot I can say about James, but in the late 90s, man, I needed you. I needed you. The promise wasn't coming to pass right away, you know. And sometimes things go on in your life that give you a suggestion that it's supposed to be another way. Meanwhile, as you know, Pastor Hart sowed in a lot of us. The summer of 94, I was with Ralph Hart in Detroit. He stood me up at the end. You know, he always had a prophetic word. And at the end of me being there, and he stood me up in front of everybody, and he told me I'd be one of the best lawyers in the country. That was in 1994. And then the struggles come. And so, but the dreams come first so that you have focus in the storms. And I'm getting ready to talk about law in a second. But, so one morning, after being out a little bit later, I ain't gonna say what I did, but the redeemed of the Lord can say so. I was at law school walking through the hallway, and there was somebody from Channel 2 across the street, and it was the day before the start of the O.J. Simpson closing arguments. And they wanted words from 4 or 5 soon-to-be lawyers. And I was one of them. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved commentary. I loved being able to talk on those things. And then when I was in college, I wrote an article, every week when I was in Washington, D.C. And so to find that outlet once I got home, particularly when the promise wasn't coming to pass right away, I'm writing with BM Magazine. So here I am leaving downtown on the 6th floor of Morrison and Forster, driving to Carson so I can get a copy of BM Magazine to see myself in print. And I remember talking about everything from the impeachment of President Clinton, dating ourselves, to once you started doing the Carson Courier, I started writing for Carson too. I remember one day you were like, Joe, can you just write this article for me? Can you just sit here and write this article for me? And I think I was writing about Pete Fajardo or whoever it was. I just forgot who it was. And so those things and those moments kept me dreaming. And I want to thank you publicly for it, because writing those articles led to writing other articles, and that kept those things in mind and made you feel like you could make it. You know, when I interviewed Jimmy Jam for your magazine, it's an interview I'd been preparing for 15 years because I was a liner notes guy. I knew where to start. You know, when I interviewed L.A. Reid, I knew where to start, but I needed the form. I couldn't just go and say, hey, can we just have a talk? No, I'm here for BEM Magazine. We want to do a cover article on you. Boom. So I appreciate it. And so it's a lot of fun, you know, as brothers to just get down the road and to just see, you know, the things that end up manifesting. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We thank you for having us, having McCune Wright Arevalo, our firm, as well as Pro Se Legal, all here. So here's what I thought that I would do. I thought that I would just give a little bit of an overview of kind of how we got here and what we're doing. And then you would hear as well from two other speakers that are really, we're kind of like a three-headed monster. One of the things that's nice about our firm and our outfit is that we're actually trying to do things of benefit to the community, and we know we can do it a bunch of different ways. Now, we have someone coming up, Dora Barella's gonna come and talk about public health. And what we believe is that following almost like a medical model, where we believe that we can let people know two things. First of all, there are certain services that they need before things go to pot. A lot of times people call a lawyer because things got out of control, or because there's a problem, or because there's some kind of urgency. But what we're letting folks know is that there are things that they can do that have potential medical and or legal implications that they can handle ahead of time. Not only is there a need, but there's actually an ability to generate and to deal with that need. California is following states like Arizona and Utah in that a lot of functions that traditionally have just been the province of lawyers are changing so that paralegals and other legal professionals can handle those things, which frankly is very good news for people because it doesn't cost as much money. There is this big gulf between LegalZoom, where, by the way, BTW, IJS, as the kids would say, 60% of LegalZoom projects do not get completed by the individual. 60%. Okay? So you get your LegalZoom, it seems like the thing to do. You're going to start your LLC, you're going to start your company, fantastic, but most people don't finish that because most of the time you need some kind of guidance. Between this gulf and the gulf of hiring a probate attorney, for instance, to do something that they might have a very good paralegal do anyway. There's a big gulf, and we believe Pro Se Legal and what we're trying to do is meeting that. And so we are just like a big law firm that deals with corporate law. People would hear about corporate law firm, et cetera. They provide everything for a company. We provide everything for the consumer. So with that, there's a personal injury department. There is an appellate law department. There's a business litigation department. We do class actions, consumer class actions. Years ago, we hit Wells Fargo for $203 million for check overdraft fees. And if anybody can feel me at all, you know, you got, you know, you regular, you got $200 in the bank, and there's 3 checks coming through, and you know that the first 2 will make it, but the third one is kind of like this, right? Well, Wells Fargo will put them in the other order, so none of them make it, and they hit you on the fees. And that was the model. If some of you remember, back when Wells Fargo bought Wachovia. Wells Fargo bought Wachovia because there were a whole lot of regular people with Wachovia accounts, and they make that part of their model as to check overdraft fees. And needless to say, big banks do not like us for that reason. Okay, so fast forward to, I was with the precursor of this firm in 2005 doing personal injury and wrongful death. And after a few years, the firm split in half. Rich McCune and Doug Williber. It was chosen for me to be on Doug Williber's side, and several of us. I ended up going into the defense work, picking up employment, which I really like. I compare the practice of law to colors. When I am doing something that's a little bit more dry, like insurance coverage or something when I would see blacks and whites and grays. But when I did employment law, I saw greens and pinks and yellows. So I really enjoyed it. And that's one of the things that came out of practicing on the defense side, is seeing employment. Okay, so now for 10 or 12 years, I actually represented employers because I think that there's nothing better than a good employer. And right now, what I will tell you, I tend to look for, when I'm representing folks, the way that I represent them, do a lot of employment, class actions, and civil rights. I do some police cases. That's not necessarily what I'm looking for per se. But what's really important for us and what we were asked to do in our mandate to come into this department and build it, and it's called Racial and Economic Justice, is to help people with income and wealth disparity, particularly people of color. Now, that does not mean, don't go tell people that I don't represent white folks. Don't do that. I got white clients too, okay? I build my practice on white clients. I love my white brothers and sisters. However, as a practical matter, there's a lot of people that don't understand that what they may need or that somebody is here to help potentially fulfill the need, okay? So our department is a three-headed monster of its own that deals with advocacy. So we may see that there is a problem that we need to advocate for. Let me be real. Here's a problem that I came up with. I have a very dear friend that owns a mortuary, African American. And I don't know if you know that they're doing this, but he was in the business for 20 years and did not know. When people die, God forbid, and then they leave proceeds to their next of kin, their spouse, to facilitate a proper burial, the first thing that happens is the people at the funeral home will go and talk to the insurance carrier to make sure that there's no liens on the insurance and that there's enough of it, okay? In that particular instance, they did so, figured out it was clear, and what often then happens is, depending on what the expenses are related to the burial, the mortuary, which is often a small business owner, will get the bridge money from a third party, like a Ford Acceptance, okay? And then when the insurance money comes through, it pays that and everything's fine. Well, they did this, and the next of kin was a man in his 70s, and they did their research. They talked to Ford Acceptance. Ford Acceptance did their research, and then out of nowhere, here came Children and Family Services and took the money for an old child support obligation. Now, we all know child support rules. We all understand that, okay? But listen, this brother's in his 70s, and the kids aren't kids anymore. Okay? And so from our standpoint, there were two people that were negatively affected. Not only the next of kin, was the person named to have the proceeds so that he could bury his wife, but also the business owner, who is now on the hook for this amount of money when they did the clearances to confirm. These guys told me they've been in business for 30 years. They said this has never happened. It's a new law. It was passed about 2 years ago. So this is a perfect example. I am in touch with our state representatives now to see if we can get amendment to that bill, because that has the potential to negatively affect a lot of small actors and a lot of small people. A lot of times, the only thing that people in our community have secured for the future is a proper burial, okay? And this takes it from them. Now, I'm not minimizing child support. We all understand child support is king, but how do you strike that balance when the kids aren't kids anymore? Okay, so however one feels about that, that's an example of advocacy. And then we also have community contact like this. CALIC, Community and Legal Issues Clinic. We've done this in San Bernardino County a few times. This is our first time in Los Angeles County. So I want to thank James and Holy Revival Church for allowing us to come into Los Angeles County. And the thing that we knew we were coming, it was just a matter of the timing. So when were we going to do it? As people know in this area, Carson had a big issue with the smell thing after this explosion took place at the I think it was the Prologis. And we got involved in that case. And we got connected through James to Brandy Murdoch. Hey, Brandy, congratulations. Hope everything is well with you. She ushered us into the community, and we were committed enough to say we were going to open an office here. So our first office in LA County will be in Carson. That's happening now. The build out is happening now. So we're not the ones to come and just stick and move and then act like we don't know you. From a background standpoint, I started spending summers in Compton in 1986. And it would be nothing for me to leave from here and to go to Louis Burgers on Bullish Road and Rosecrans, and ooh, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. It would be nothing to do that. And so this is a little bit of a homecoming just in terms of being around El Segundo and being around Rosecrans and being around Imperial and things like that. So the third aspect of the three-headed monster is the actual practice of law too. We sue people. I sue people a lot. Okay? You know, most recently, some may have seen us, which is kind of funny to say. I'm not a movie star or anything, but I've had some people come up to me on the street. Hey, I saw you on television a couple weeks ago. We just filed a class action lawsuit against the California State University for wage disparity. Women and people of color not getting paid as much money for the same work. And that was on LA television a couple weeks ago. A lot of sexual harassment. I don't know if it's something in the water or it just never changed, but people are sexually harassing like it's going out of style. Okay? So I have several cases where there's sexual harassment, often in the employment context. Often people that are being penalized for complaining about something at work that they reasonably believe to be against the law. If you complain about something at work and you find yourself demoted or fired, you probably have a claim of wrongful demotion, termination, et cetera, against public policy, because the government says and the law says that you should not be penalized for doing good to the public and for the workplace by complaining about something you reasonably believe to be against the law. You don't even have to be right about it being against the law. As long as you have a reasonable belief, okay, then people can't move on you. So I'm seeing a lot of that right now. I'm seeing a lot of wage and hour issues. And by the way, I was talking about how, you know, employers are good. I'm going to tell people right now, I'm not particularly interested, some attorneys are, I'm not particularly interested in gotcha moments. I know what it is to represent an employer who gets hit $400,000 because everybody votes for a alternative work schedule and one person gets mad and they get fired the second time, and then they get the technicality that my employer, who is big enough to have W-2s but not big enough to have HR department so he can stay caught up on the law, is penalized because he didn't know how to post his secret vote with the state. He did the secret vote, but he didn't post it. So in the eyes of the state, he could not do an alternative work schedule. This is a fantastic employer, and because of that technical violation, that was a $100,000 error. Okay? I'm not particularly interested in technical violations. I'm interested in things that destroy the workplace and the work environment. People that are going to work in fear of going to work because of the way that they're being treated. That's what I'm interested in. If you've got a good employer that is making a mistake and you've got good seed in the ground from a goodwill standpoint, you go and have a conversation with the employer and get it fixed. Okay, in fact, I sit on a board right now where somehow we realized that we have a person that needed to be paid twice if somebody is exempt. They need to be paid twice the minimum wage, and for a period of time they were not. Even though we couldn't figure out the exact numbers because she was exempt sometimes in terms of her function, we weren't sure there was half. They came up with the number and they paid her that number, and they fixed the problem when she came to them. And the only lawyer was involved was me writing it up for free. Okay, if you've got a good employment relationship, but there's something that needs to be fixed that's fractured and you can fix it, because there's nothing better than a good employer. I told myself a long time ago that once I became a boss and I was running the section, there'd be nobody that would not come to work because of me. Okay, if you've got an employer like that, work with them. Just like, keep it real, they might be working with you. Okay, so we do a lot of employment, a fair amount of employment. We like to deal with systemic issues. So like right now, the Cal State thing, I'm hearing from a lot of people because of the TV articles. If you're at Cal State and you work there and you know that the people before you were men, perhaps white men, et cetera, they're getting paid more than you for the same work and they shouldn't be, and you've had that discussion, find that out. Call me, okay? you guys, if you can flash our information, that would also be good. Always love being in the spot, being where I'm familiar. My dear friend, Lonzo Williams just walked in. Every time you hear a Dr. Dre record, you need to thank Lonzo Williams, because that is the man that discovered him. For those of you that watched the Super Bowl show and you saw this spot in the whole little model that they did called Eve After Dark, that was Lonzo's spot. And so all those years ago, Lonzo put me on the biggest case I had in my life at that time. I thank you again. And so I'm thrilled to see you. And he's regular. He always says, without lying and without missing a beat, I don't have any security problems. So a good, happy brother. And we go back now, what? We got about 20 years or so.
You got more than 20, baby?
Yeah, probably. So, yeah. So that's right. So, you know.
Got your law degree.
Yeah, yeah, 96. So right about then. So, you know, Dr. Dre, Before You Turn Off the Lights, Miss Chalet, Ice Cube, all of these guys started with Lonzo. So I appreciate Lonzo being here. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that people know that they have a community resource that they didn't have before, somebody that understands it. That's why we do these events at churches, because churches are the community pillars, okay? Now, as it pertains to our firm, there's a couple things that we have going. We have all of these departments that help to deal with and help the consumer with everything that they may potentially need. So now you have the resources of a big defense firm, except we're not a defense firm, okay? And so that's important, but we're going to also talk, you're going to hear from Reina Ventura of Pro Se, which is another company that our leaders have started that help to fill that gap between the legal Zoom and having nobody to talk to and nobody to connect with, so that your project that was cheaper is actually unfinished, so you end up paying the likes of me anyway, versus going and paying your lawyer $4,000 to do a probate document that he probably gives to his paralegal, who may be smarter than him anyway. So let's cut out the middleman and get you there. Okay, so that's what Pro Se does. And we see Pro Se as the primary care provider for your law needs. So if you go to do paperwork for a labor board claim and somebody asks you, so is this happening with other people? Oh yeah, the whole 100 of us, none of us get our lunches on time. As a matter of fact, they stack our lunches, something real smart that Amazon people were doing over by the Plains in Ontario. They don't let you go on lunch, they don't let you go on break, and then they stack your lunch and your break together, all 100 of them. And so what that is, you know, dare I say, an upsell to saying, okay, you need to talk to the attorney. Okay, and so what we're going to be able to do through Pro Se is needs assessment, so that we can not only deal with that primary need, but if there's something systemic or something bigger going on, we can be helpful. If you've ever been to a Holy Revival Church, calling out the members and everybody else, we're going to leave some packages here, some packets here, where you can have some very, very good information, not only county resources on all things. The reason why we speak and have both lawyers and non-lawyers is because if you don't deal with these particular issues we're talking about, it almost always has legal implications anyway. That's why we really want to supply a help to the community, so that people, hopefully, I'm not the one you want to call because you want to. You should call me because you have to. You know, trial is nuclear. We're okay doing it. We're okay pushing the button. But somebody always wins and somebody always loses. 80 to 90% of cases that are filed will never make it to trial. So even though we can sue it, and even though I'm very confident about closing argument, by the time I get to closing argument, they don't come out for us. It's not going to be because they didn't want to. Lonzo knows about that. That's kind of what happened to us. That's another story. But if I can get you a result quicker and more certain, I'm going to be looking at that. I'm always interested, by the way, and I'll say this, and then I'm going to bring on Dora. Are you speaking next? I think Dora's going to speak next. Okay. I'm always, by the way, you know, another BTW IJS moment. For those of you that are talking to attorneys about taking on your cases, here are a few things that you want to avoid. Didn't know I was doing this, but sometimes, you know, when you're in church, Holy Spirit moves you. This is something you want to think about, okay? Listen, if you've had 3 attorneys already, and then you call me and you're talking about how bad your attorneys were, all your attorneys had you in common. I'm probably not going to take your case. You also have to be very careful about doing a lot of the things that the lawyers would do ahead of time. It's one thing if you're running out of time and you don't have a choice. But most of us don't like it. Pick your career. Most of us don't like coming up behind somebody else. It might be style, it might be substance, it might be some of both, but it makes it less likely. I want the person that doesn't like to go to court, that's going because they have to, not because they want to. You guys, a lot of times people think it's a blood sport. They want to just go to court, just like they want to, bang on people on Facebook, people that they don't have to face, people that they don't know, people that they don't contemplate a future with. It's not useful. Now, if we going because we have to go, it's like pulling out a gun. Maybe a bad example right now. It's about pulling out a gun. You don't pull it out because you want to. And there's ramifications if you do pull it out, by the way. But by the time we have to do that, by the time we have to go to trial, we have to sue your case, we're going to be vigorous. Most cases are taken on a contingency fee basis, which means you're not paying a dime out of pocket. We eat what we kill. If we don't get anything for you, you're not paying us anything. But it is important. We love working with you. We love hearing from you. But it's really important that you listen to your attorneys too. You got an attorney right now and you're a little disaffected. You haven't talked to him in 3 weeks. That's the problem. Call him. Okay? I'm not here to bang on other attorneys. And 9 times out of 10, I don't want a case that's with another attorney because it's harder to take because often there was some kind of problem and you are not always disconnected from it. Particularly if you had a dollar amount that you wanted to get ahead of time, knowing nothing about the law, knowing nothing about the value of your case, looking to the side of everything that could potentially be brought against you, et cetera. You have to look both ways before you cross the street. Coming from a defense side, it makes me very conservative, for lack of a better term, because I'm looking for what's egregious. I don't like gotcha moments. Oh, gotcha, pay me $50,000. No. Let's do something systemic, let's do something to deal with something systemic to make it better for everybody. Now, it might be just an individual thing where somebody wants to pay you because their hand got caught in a cookie jar. That's how Cal State happened. I took a couple individual cases and it went from there, and now we have a major class action. Why? Because I found out that there were some systemic issues with pay. Okay? So, all I'm saying is lawyers have a reason for not taking cases. So make sure that you kind of steer clear of those reasons ahead of time, and you'll be better off. Be documented. Most of the time, the first thing I'm asking you for is a timeline related to your issue. When did this happen? If you can be general, the more specific you can be, the better. You might, at some point, if you're having trouble with somebody at work, at the boss, or whatever else, you either email in writing what you're saying, or you confirm it in writing. A lot of times you're scared to do that. I understand. A lot of times I meet folks that were scared to do that. They didn't do it. They got fired anyway. Whatever happened, happened. Now, everything that should have been in writing is a he said, she said situation. So if somebody just lied, cheated, and stole, and there's nothing to prove it other than your word, and the people that work with them that you think are your witnesses are going to probably err on the side of keeping their jobs, where are we? I know it's a difficult situation, and you shouldn't have to deal with that, but here we are. So all I'm saying really is be commonsensical. I'm trying to help you sustain, maintain, and keep things going, but be as commonsensical as you possibly can. So in our three-headed monster, there is the law, and there's also our connection to public health. And so I'm getting ready to bring up Dora Barilla, who is a public health professional. She's been doing it for many, many years, to give you a 30,000-foot view on public health. And now you're getting ready to understand how the law connects to public health and how legal issues are actually public health issues. If you didn't know, now you're getting ready to know. Dora, come on up. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Pastor James. It's really a privilege to be here today. When you stand here in a church and you're talking about public health and legal issues, it's really exciting for me, because what we do know is that communities don't mobilize and change in isolation, that it really requires communities coming and working together. And so the fact that we've got public health, the faith communities, and legal all coming together, that's just a key part of the puzzle in order to really make a change. So I want to share a little bit. I'm a doctor of public health, why I'm working with a law firm. and really what the role of public health is in all of this. And I'm going to do it through really sharing a little bit of a story of my career. I've been working, I started working in hospitals in 1986. So I've been really in kind of the healthcare field, but really looking at it from a public health perspective. And really looking at how can we really make a difference in communities? How can we improve? What is public health? You know, people often even ask that question. But first I want to share a little bit of a story. And I had been working with health systems and public health agencies and, you know, really large health systems in the last 5 years. And in February of 2020, I had working with a health system based up in Seattle, Washington. And I had been there for a meeting for the last couple of days, and I got stuck in the airport. So you remember February 28th, I'm in Seattle, Washington. If you recall, that's when one of the first COVID cases in the United States was diagnosed. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people experience this, is I had a delay in my plane, and so I was there through the night watching the news and really watching what was unfolding right in front of me. And just really watched what was this the beginning of? And then as the year continued, just to watch the fear of people, to watch a lot of healthcare professionals not knowing what's happening, going in and having to take care of patients that were infected with COVID, not having a will when they're going in to care for patients. You recall, we didn't know. There was a lot that we just didn't know. We tried to err on the side of caution. We saw people, unfortunately, dying disproportionately throughout the country. Joe talked a little bit about funerals and, you know, just the impact that had on communities, on people. We saw the murder of George Floyd and the racial tensions throughout the country, and how that impacted and polarized a lot of our communities. We saw, you know, so many businesses close because, again, people were fearful. We saw, you know, economic downturn in some communities and businesses closed. Just a lot of public health challenges. And, you know, it really made me, kind of take that moment in your life where you say, what is this all about? And here I was working in a health system, thinking that I was changing the world and making things different. And the reality is that, you know, what's the role of public health? We've had some great successes just in history. You look at infectious diseases, one of them. Vaccinations are one of them. You know, improving motor vehicular accidents, making working conditions a lot safer. We've improved, you know, tobacco use, cardiovascular disease. And so really the role of public health is to say what's happening in a community, kind of doing that assessment, identifying, well, what can we do differently, trying some interventions, and then evaluating whether or not it's working. And so really in 2020, I said to myself, something's not working. If you look at some of the data, the Gallup surveys were saying that people were, you know, when they did, like, how are people doing? Gallup surveys, people were plummeting in terms of their just well-being, that they were no longer thriving, that they just weren't doing well. If you look at life expectancy, and that's kind of a projection, you know, it's usually we live longer, right, as the world moves on and we have scientific advances and we're doing better. Well, since 2019, it's taken a significant dip and continues to go down. The Urban Institute recently did some fact finding in some of the data and some of those projections, and it was found that we have had the biggest decline in our life expectancy since 1943. Something's not happening right in our communities. And so I've been working with McCune Wright for the past year, or McCune Wright Arevalo for the past year, as well as at Pro Se Legal, because what I found, and as we're doing our assessment, is that we need to start thinking about how we're collectively improving community health and public health differently. And we've always known that legal issues were important in public health. But I think the last 2 years really gave us clarity that it is more important now more than ever in terms of not just tinkering around the edges and saying, okay, you know, what's happening here with this individual? Not that that's not important, but what are some of those systemic issues? And when I was asked to work with this law firm, did a lot of research and a lot of soul searching, and really found the integrity that you saw in Joe was systemic through the organization and what they were trying to do in terms of really addressing equity as well as environmental conditions that were impacting the health of our communities and the health of all of our well-being. And so it's really exciting that I can, you know, just working, I still work with health systems at times, but the fact that we can really think about public health in a new way and really begin to say, what is the well-being? How can we, you know, really look at the well-being of our communities, of ourselves, and of the world in fundamentally different ways? And then also, how can we do that together? And there's a new framing that's really coming out in terms of looking, you know, in healthcare we call them the social determinants of health, but really looking at what are the vital conditions that we all need to thrive as a human being, as a community, and as a world. And how can we stop looking at the polarization? Not that we're not going to address equity and issues where people are disproportionately impacted, because you don't have improved health without identifying who's disproportionately impacted. And we saw that in spades. So how can we really begin to look at providing the services that people need, whether it's legal services or legal document assistance? Because that's going to make a difference in everything. I'm here in a church on a Saturday morning thinking about, you know, just how do we begin to talk about public health differently in the world and the multiple challenges that our world is facing today. So I'm going to spend maybe 20 seconds on how do you stay healthy? I think we all kind of know that, right? As an individual. We all know we need to move and exercise. We all know that we need to eat right. We know we need to drink water. We know we need to avoid substances. We know that we need to sleep. We know that we need human connection because it's a part of life, right? We know that we need to volunteer and be a part of community. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I couldn't leave without just reminding us all that there is some individual things that we all need to do. But let's talk about the vital conditions of a community and what we can do together and how we can really take a look and change. I'm the eternal optimist. And when I saw those numbers, it really convicted my heart. I have a 24 and a 27-year-old daughter, and they tell me, Mom, I don't want to have kids. The world's a scary place. Look at what's happening. That breaks my heart. I said, no, you could be a part of the solution. And how can we begin to create a narrative and create a community where we can all work together? So I want to just outline some optimism and how we're working at this through McCune Wright Aravello and through Pro Se Legal, and talk about how we can do this more collectively as a community, because we all have a role and a responsibility in improving the health and well-being of ourselves, our families, and our community. But I think the missing link is that we can't do it alone. We need the legal profession. We need the faith communities. We need public health. We need hospitals. But we need to work together and not be polarized. And we can all have differences of opinion. That's a healthy thing, right? But that doesn't mean that we're not connected as human beings and that we all need to thrive in a world to make it a better place and to hopefully our next generation to want to have children and want to feel good about bringing it into a place where there's hope. And so I want to walk through what are those vital conditions, and then walk through what are the components of whether it's legal document assistance or, you know, the three-headed monster that Joe talked about, which is so needed. they call them the vital conditions, so thriving in a natural world. What are those environmental conditions that are necessary? We all know. I mean, you can have the debate about climate change or whatever you feel, but we all know you don't survive, you don't live without fresh and clean water, clean air, and an environment where you can breathe clean, just not be exposed to hazards. That's pretty neutralizing, isn't it? I mean, that's something that we can all come together on. But there's a lot, just as Joe mentioned, that we take that for granted. And then in some communities, that's not the case. It happened here in Carson. What happened in Flint, Michigan in my lifetime is indescribable. And it wasn't until you had the health professions and legal communities coming together that they started to make a difference, and the accountability changed things. That's exactly what needs to happen in our environment and in our world today. And just to be realistic about, you don't live if you don't have water and air. Everyone needs that. How can we all thrive together and be a part of that? Your basic needs for health and safety. We can all disagree on some issues around healthcare access and how we do that as a country. But I think we all agree that when your children are sick or when you're sick, you need access to healthcare, right? We don't need to be discriminating against that or having some people have access and some people not. Everybody needs food. To watch the food insecurity in our country and in our communities in 2020 was just indescribable. How can we come together, and what were some of the, perhaps the legal issues and some of those just basic community conditions that could have prevented people from, just having basic nutrition? Okay, I can't be here and not talk about some public health and prevention, right? So how is it that we can, really pull in public health in and help use the tools, and not necessarily the departments of public health, but I think the model of public health. That the model of public health is to, work collectively in communities and to address and identify what's happening. And the legal profession has a really important role in that, not only through the individual, but through the collective. Because it's through the collective, and what's happening at McCune Wright Arevalo is actually addressing some of the systemic issues that we've been tinkering around too long with. So your basic needs for health and safety, we all need them. We all need to come together, and we all need to thrive in a way that our well-being will be increased. If you look at the amount of the mental health issues in our country over the last 3 years, the people that are experiencing depression and anxiety, the substance abuse, the overdose that have happened in our communities is appalling. And I'm not going to place blame. I know we're publicly here, but there's a lot of key conditions that are happening with that, and it was the drug companies and some legal actions that changed some of that enforcement and some of the pushing of illegal drugs in our communities, which allowed people to become addicted. And it was the legal profession that made that difference, that came in, and really understanding your rights and what role they can play. Humane housing. Reina's going to come up here in a minute and talk about, we all need a place to live, right? I don't know if you've seen some of the unhoused and those experiencing homelessness in our communities. Some real issues. There's some real systemic legal issues. There's some real needs in terms of document assistance that need to happen, and that we can provide and let people know that it's available to them, that it's not just for people that can afford a lawyer and that that's somebody special, but that we all need humane housing or some, just basic safe places to live. In just working in the healthcare industry for so long, we saw that small children with asthma were coming in, and no matter what we tried to do, it wouldn't make a difference. And it was because of some substandard housing often that They were living in conditions in the United States. I'm not talking about any third world country, and I'm a native of Southern California. I worked at Children's Hospital in the 80s, saw what was happening in our local communities. But there were some real inhumane housing conditions that were happening that, could really be addressed through the legal community. Meaningful work and wealth. Joe talked to, what do you see, purple and pink and yellow when you start working, in employment. Because, people need work, they need employment, they need to have their own wealth, and then they need to sustain it. And a lot of times there's discriminatory practices that inhibit people from doing that. And how can we pull those into the sunshine, give people access to what they can do about it? Because often it feels, no matter what you say or do, that it's not going to make a difference. But it's the legal community that can step in and really make that difference. Or whether it's employment or some documents that people need in order to, for employment, or to retain their wealth. Everyone needs to do estate planning. I don't care if your home is worth $50,000. It's $50,000 that your home is worth that shouldn't go into probate and that should retain in your family. How do we really encourage and look at, wealth building? And how do we make the tools accessible to communities to be able to do that? Lifelong learning, education. How can we really begin to look at, how people can have access to education and, work with, whether it's universities or, trade schools, so that individuals can really lead to that work and meaningful wealth. And oftentimes there are discriminatory practices, or there's documents that are needed for people to apply for colleges or for trade school that they just didn't know that they needed. Reliable transportation, and then belonging and civic muscle. So those are kind of what we're shaping and really looking at in terms of what we're calling the vital conditions. And belonging and civic muscle, I'm going to really leave us with, is that's a part of just being in community and belonging and feeling like you have a say, that you're a part of a community and that you can make a difference. If you call and you need support, or that that you're being marginalized or discriminated against, that you have the tools or someone that you can call. Or that just if you need those legal documents that allow you to be a part of something, or to have that civic engagement, that those resources are there. They're not just for some people, but they're really for all people. So as we think about, I'm hopeful that we can turn it around, that we can look at how is our life expectancy increasing. As Joe mentioned, we have a packet in the back with a resource list. So we've got some resources for you guys. We've got in LA, 211 LA, which is a great resource that you can go online or call if you need resources. That it's going, communities need each other. We need support. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help when you need it, because let me tell you, we're all hurting. Some more than others, but our communities are hurting, and really reaching out and getting help for yourself, for your family, and for our communities, that it is going to take us working together. So I'm really proud as a doctor of public health to be working with McCune Wright Aravala, who's really looking at systemic issues, and with Pro Se Legal, that's providing services to people that would otherwise be unattainable. So many people do go on to LegalZoom and can't do some of those basic documents. And it's really exciting for us to be here together, working together to make a difference. And so with that, I want to thank you for the time. Or do you want to come back up, Joe, and introduce Reina? No problem. All right. Then we'll go ahead and bring up Reina Ventura from Pro Se Legal to talk about just some amazing opportunities and way to improve the health of our community. So thank you, Reina.
Thank you so much, Dora. I want to bring up Reina Ventura, who part of the vision of our managing partner, Rich McCune, was to create a company that could deal with a lot of the things that lawyers don't necessarily have to, and to bring down the cost, but also help folks understand that you don't have to wait till it's urgent to deal with these particular issues. Time and time again, I'm not going to step on Reina's presentation, but I hear people talking about powers of attorney when people die. Well, powers of attorney when people are alive, for when people are alive. And if you didn't know that, and you're watching that right now, then you need to check this out. Reina is a senior legal document assistant at Pro Se Legal, who has an excellent background in dealing with areas of law, relevant areas of law that come together at Pro Se. She also has her degree in political science. We haven't gotten in a political argument yet, so we'll see how that goes. But they are really the point guard on this team in terms of letting us know the things that are available to people and the things that people need. A lot of people are walking around needing these documents. They have no idea that they do, or they understand that they do, but they don't think that they're attainable. So helping folks understand that is really a big thing, and that's why what Reina's doing over there leading Pro Se is very important. And like she'll say, we're opening an office close by. There's 6 or 7 offices open in Southern California thus far. We expect in the next couple of years there will probably be 20 offices statewide, including all over Southern California. You're going to see us, okay? So Reina, thanks for coming. Come on up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Reina. I am the Supervising Legal Document Assistant for Pro Se Legal. Today, I'm going to be doing a couple of things. I'm going to be introducing you to our company. I'm going to be explaining to you guys what a legal document assistant can do. And I will be addressing the importance of having access to legal services and how legal document assistants help our community obtain affordable legal services. So who is Pro Se Legal? So Pro Se Legal provides a wide variety of document preparation services. We have a dedicated team of legal document assistants that assist clients in navigating the sometimes complicated world of the legal process. To serve our clients, we have several offices in Southern California. Currently, we have 4 open, 1 in Ontario, Redlands, Calimesa, and Eastvale. We are soon going to be opening more offices throughout California, including in Upland, Rancho Mirage, Carson, Tustin, and Victorville, and more. So let's go into what is a legal document assistant. So under California law, legal document assistants are authorized to assist self-represented clients by preparing legal documents under the direction of their customers. They file legal documents in the appropriate courts, and they distribute legal materials that have been published or approved by a lawyer. It is important to know that legal document assistants are bonded and registered in the county where they mainly provide services. I'm going to give you some examples of some of the services we provide at Pro Se. We provide estate planning services. We help people creating their living trust, their wills, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, amongst other. We also help with probate matters. We help clients with the court administration of estates. We also help with family law matters, most commonly with divorces, but we also help with some child or custody modification orders. We also help business owners with their business formation needs. We help business owners, thank you. We help business owners set up their LLCs, their corporations. We also help homeowners with deed transfers. We help them with quitclaim deeds, interspousal deeds, trust transfer deeds, grant deeds, affidavits. We also help with small claims, among other areas. So who do we assist As legal document assistants, we serve self-represented parties. Our clients consist and come from all walks of life. They are young adults, retirees, business owners, and working professionals. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit the importance of legal document assistance and how we can help everyone have access to legal services. And I want to share a little bit with you my personal experience when I was in paralegal school. When I was in school, I was taught that there was two ways for people to receive legal services. One was for them to go hire an attorney, and two, if they could not afford an attorney, go to a legal aid. Now, as a working professional, I see that having or limiting ourselves to having those two options is just very unrealistic. The truth is, some people do not require legal advice or legal representation from an attorney. In some cases, attorneys will not take a client's case because their fee just simply does not justify the service they would be providing. I'm going to give you an example. I had a client hire us to help him probating his mother's estate. He was actually referred to us by an attorney who would not take his case because he realized that after all the administrative costs and the attorney's fees, the heirs would be left with no inheritance. To help the client preserve the inheritance, and because the case was simple and with no foreseeable issues, he recommended the client to hire us to help him with his matter. Like I mentioned, some clients simply do not require the help of an attorney. Some of our clients are working professionals who feel comfortable handling their legal matter on their own, but just simply do not have the time for it. Some of our clients that fall in this category include attorneys, doctors, business owners that hire us to prepare documents for their personal legal matters because due to their busy schedule, they just simply do not have the time to do it on their own. Legal aid organizations are a great alternative, but unfortunately, these organizations are limited. They have limited resources, they handle limited types of matters, and generally only accept low-income clients. But even people who fit this criteria for service can struggle obtaining services from these organizations. Let me give you an example. We had a low-income senior citizen client who was getting evicted. After he was served with the eviction notice, he only had 30 days to file a response. I thought he was a perfect candidate for legal aid. He applied for services at the legal aid, but was denied. They told him they were not going to be able to help him on time. He came to us for help. We were able to prepare his response and file it on time. The self-help service center at the court was also not an option for him due to his health. But thankfully, we were able to help him. Now, let me give you a little bit of information about a survey conducted by the State Bar of California, which found that 55% of Californians at all income levels experienced at least one civil legal problem in their household, yet nearly 70% of them received no legal assistance. Fewer than 1 in 3 Californians sought legal assistance to address their problems. And even when experiencing problems that have a significant impact on them, most do not receive legal help. Only 27% of low-income Californians received some help, while only 34% of middle-income individuals did. Believe it or not, these statistics affect Californians at all income levels. The State Bar of California indicated the reasons why Californians do not seek legal help include 31%, for example, are unsure if their problem is even a legal issue. 31% decided to deal with the problem without help. 16% worried about the cost, and 14% were afraid to pursue legal action. As the survey states, some people decide to deal with their legal problem without help. And even though some people have the knowledge and time to handle their legal matters, those that don't end up creating more legal troubles when trying to do it themselves. I had a client who called me. He asked me to help him with a deed. He said, I need to correct a deed. As I looked into the matter, his situation was this. He owned a property in joint tenancy with his mother. His mother, unfortunately, passed away. He called someone at the mortgage department, and he was advised by someone to prepare a quitclaim deed and record it with the county. He somehow obtained a template and handwrote all the information in this deed, took it to the county, and got it recorded. Only to find out, as we did our research, what he actually ended up doing was he quitclaimed the property back to his deceased mother. I didn't know how to help him. I had never seen the situation. We actually contacted 2 probate attorneys, and we contacted 2 title companies to see if there was a way to correct this mistake. Unfortunately, after doing our research and talking to all these people, everybody recommended the only way to fix it was to probate his mother's estate. It was a very unfortunate situation. And I think about this case often and wish he would have just called us before trying to handle the matter on his own. The survey by the State Bar of California also states that some of the issues why Californians do not seek legal assistance is because they simply don't know where to go. They are unsure if their problem is a legal issue. Even now, with access to technology, it can be difficult for an average person to know where to start looking or to determine what kind of problem they have. Every day, we get calls from clients who share with us their legal problem. They are unsure what kind of service they need or where to go. We are often able to help them, but when they require a service we cannot provide, we are able to refer them out to the appropriate professional. LDAs are important because some people might feel more comfortable reaching out to us for assistance. And if it is not a matter that we can help them with, we are able to provide them with the resources and information and are able to guide them if we can't directly help them. In some cases, we encourage them and explain to some clients the importance of hiring an attorney in their situation when we see they would benefit from obtaining from legal advice. If cost is a concern, as the survey states, legal document assistants are a great alternative to attorneys when a client does not require legal advice or legal representation. In pro se, for example, one of our most popular services include our living trust packages. We help people prepare the living trust, wills, healthcare directives, powers of attorney. When our clients inquire about our services, they are pleased to find out about our fees. They usually have been shopping around and have gotten really interesting numbers out there. For those people that have a modest estate and sometimes limited income, paying high legal fees is just not possible for them. But Pro Se Legal makes it possible. Now, I'm going to wrap it up with the following. Closing the justice gap and assuring access to legal services is an ongoing issue in California. Legal document assistance can help close the gap by offering services to self-represented parties without them worrying about the cost and at the same time receiving professional assistance. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Reina. You're more than welcome. Thank you. At this moment, we'll take a couple questions if folks have them for any of us. If somebody really wants to know, I can tell you what my favorite fruit is and why, but I'm not sure. I think that there's some things that might be a little bit more important. Anybody? Lonzo? Or Mom, you got one? You got one? My mom's here. Mom, come up here and I got Mom at the spot. Mom, come up to the mic, would you? Or talk really loud.
I learned something today. This is really important to me.
Right.
Because when you was talking about you had this list of
Right.
all these services and things.
Sure.
And most people don't know where to go
That's
or
right.
how to find these services. And most of them think you have to go to a lawyer, which sometimes costs a lot of money. So I really learned something today, and it's really a help for
Right.
me, because I asked you about health,
I think I'm getting in trouble. No.
about,
Yeah,
my
sure.
health insurance and
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
And it goes beyond what I even knew it was going to go beyond. And I don't even know, a lot of the things that I'm do or not do.
Right, sure.
So I was talking to you about it, and you start telling me
Right.
about the different things that I should know to
Right.
be able to take care of my business. So
Right.
I like this list, but what I want to know is, how do people find out about, like you're saying it today here,
Wow.
but how do people, ordinary people,
Right.
find out about these services and how they can take advantage?
Raina, do you want to talk about that? Yeah, just how people find out about. What form are you looking at, Mom?
Nonprofit resources list?
Nonprofit list of resources. Dora, did you want to say something about that?
Sure. I mean, just.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to figure out whether I was getting admonished. See, when you bring your mom to the spot, you
That's
just don't
right.
know.
That's right. I'll help you out, Joe. On the bottom there, there's a 211 number, and nationwide, not every community has a 211, but a lot of them do. And there's, kind of some new phone lines, kind of like the 911, but it's the 211. And that's a starting place that a lot of communities can say, how can I get help? Whether that's for, a lot of people that are on Medicare, all those commercials, like how do you triage through all of that? They have some great not-for-profit resources that can help people advocate and kind of navigate through some of those challenges.
I don't know too much about social media, but are you on Twitter and Instagram and places like that people get on the social media and they can find out about all this?
In some communities, that's community by community, but I don't know, Reina, if we've got, in terms of Pro Se Legal, for some of the legal services, we are, and we have those handles.
We're prosaelegal.com,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Prosaelegal.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do have
Oh,
some
you're
of that.
there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Pro Se Legal definitely is for some of those, legal issues.
Okay, because I learned a lot from you when you're saying that, well, I didn't know it from Joe, because I didn't know to ask, that legally, you're doing legal and putting all this together, and it makes it much better, help for people, because a lot of times, if you can do something less for less money
Right,
and help them,
right.
the same as a lawyer could do, that's really doing something good for the people.
Well, we're so glad. That's really our intent, is to really help people navigate through all of that. So thank you.
So I learned something today, too.
I'm so glad.
By accident. By accident.
Well, then it was worth it.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, Lonzo?
Now, my question is, how does this compare to something like Legal Shield? Is this a better thing than Legal Shield? I have Legal Shield. I want to cancel it because I don't really use it, because I just need certain things, but I keep on putting off the things I need to do, so I'm still spending $45 a month on something I'm not using, so I can come to y'all and do everything and just cancel Legal Shield, because I have a trust that needs to be updated. I don't have a physical will. My will is started on Legal Shield, but I ain't finished it yet. Hope I don't die no time soon, because it's going to be a mess.
Please do not do that.
And I was hoping James give me a shot of that Patron over there.
going to let Reina answer that for you, because what did she say, 60% of people that start, some of those don't finish?
Don't finish them. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Pro Se, one of the things that brings Pro Se apart from all those other companies is we have physical offices where people can visit us. I believe Legal Shield's some kind of membership. We don't have anything like that yet, maybe in the future, who knows? But as of now, we have physical offices where people can just go visit us. You can sit one-on-one with someone. Like Joe mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't finish the paperwork. They start it up and don't wrap it up because they need some guidance. And that's the benefit of Pro Se. You can visit us in person. You can have one-on-one with one of the legal document assistants who can guide you and help you and assist you with all these documents, as opposed to going online and not ever meeting with a person, and having to have that knowledge yourself of how to do it and what the other steps are. A lot of these online companies help with living trust, but they don't really educate the clients as to what other things need to be done. For example, a lot of people create living trust. They think by signing the document and saving it in their home, they're set. And the truth is that after they pass away, we find out the property was not titled in the name of their trust. And now we have to do a probate proceeding. So there's a couple of steps that need to be done. And, being able to go to an office, meeting with someone, and providing you with resources that teach you or show you that part, help you really have a complete plan, as opposed to just going online or having this company.
Excellent. I would also add to that too is a lot of times when people get Legal Shield, where they pay a monthly, that they can then at some point call on legal services when they need to. 9 times out of 10, they don't know how narrow or how broad that service that they bought actually is. Okay, that's thing one. Thing two, you have to be aware of is that if you're looking for a barber, you don't know, and you move to my area, you're gonna ask me who the barber is. You're not gonna look up the paper, you're not gonna do anything. You're gonna ask, right? You do the same thing with attorneys, you do the same thing with any service that you value. Okay? And so for us to be able to say, go to Reina, go to this person that you actually have a relationship with. When you have a Legal Shield, you probably don't have the relationship because you don't actually know who you're going to be sent to. So Legal Shield might work as long as it's in the box, but at least half the time I come across folks that got Legal Shield because they got into a problem and then figured out Legal Shield doesn't give them everything they needed to. Or that one time it went real good and the other time it didn't because you didn't like the person. A lot of people think that they have to pay $1 million to have an attorney so that they have the relationship. So actually what we're offering is the best of both worlds. We're offering a cost of a legal professional, not necessarily attorney, or a legal document assistant, which is a lot more reasonable, but the relationship too, right? You know what I mean? So there's more predictable in terms of what you're actually getting.
Do this work the same with businesses or just personal?
Can be businesses as well. Business documents can be LLCs, a lot of document preparation on that side of things, LLCs, corporations, that type of thing. I can't underscore this whole probate situation like enough. The probate, listen, is the ball game. Listen, if you own a house, your family owns a house, once they die, you're gonna understand what probate is, and you're gonna be on the wrong side of it, okay? Everybody that owns a house needs to have the house in trust. Just about. Now, we can argue about exceptions if a husband and wife own in joint tenancy, but this situation that Reina's talking about gives you an idea. If you don't know what to do, now you've got a separate problem, okay? Those things need to be in trust. Trust is a probate avoidance technique, okay? And so my will is, this is where I want things to go. I want Jim to have this, I want Ted to have that, and then I want Monica to have that, okay? That's fine, that's good, and that's well. But who reads the will? If you have an asset that is probatable and you haven't put it in trust so it's protected from probate, it's gonna go to probate. They might read the will at probate, but it's gonna go to probate, and you're gonna have the probate charges. And so what pro se gives you is the relationship and the expertise without the cost and the consistency related to that and the predictability. And so what it'll be is it'll be a set fee for whatever it is that you're getting, okay? And you know what it is that you're getting, and you'll have us say, okay, this is contested, this is out of the barn, you need to talk to a probate attorney, you need to talk to an employment attorney, and here's who we'd refer you to. Typically, we're gonna do well with things that are not contested. Okay, if you're coming and you're saying, and there's 5 brothers, you know, on the property along with the mother, and the mother just died, and the will just said X, Y, Z, and this is what happens afterward, and nothing's in trust or whatever else, and the 4 other brothers want to do something different than you. Listen, we're not going to cure all that. That's probably going to end up being a legal issue with attorneys. Why? Because mom, bless her heart, may she rest in peace, didn't take care of that all that time ago, but she might not have known to, you know what I mean, quite that way. So, you know, to have the potential to do that and to help you that way where you get some predictability. And listen, as we all know, to keep it real, families come out of a bag when people die, okay? And stuff happens. And to have the predictability of saying, this is where it goes and this is where it is. This is who my successor trustee is. Their job is to hand out the assets and then dissolve the trust. You know what I mean? I picked it because it was my house, because it was my stuff, and that's that. You can be mad at mom, but mom's not here, and mom was very clear about what she wanted to do. Okay? That's what you get more than anything, is the predictability. And I think that that's really important. And it gives you the relationship that you wouldn't necessarily have, which is a little bit more hit or miss with like a Legal Shield or that type of thing, as well as having the expertise. LegalZoom will say, go this way. You know what I mean? But they're not going to give you the expertise, which is why so many of their projects never get finished. And by the way, another thing that you will see is you'll see the LegalZoom people. We'll be competing against them in this space, by the way, because they know that we're onto something. More questions?
Earlier, you touched on contingency fee basis, so
Oh, yeah, good question.
that's something that I think that you said had to do with like the attorney fees, we don't have to pay anything, but what about the costs throughout the court case? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Oh, that's excellent. My gosh, thank you so much for that question. So a lot of times people don't know to go to an attorney because, among other things, they're worried about the cost. Pro se is a fee-for-service type of situation. When you're coming into the law firm, when we're doing plaintiff's work, plaintiff's personal injury, wrongful death, medical malpractice, employment, civil rights, we expend costs on your behalf, and we take a percentage, or what we call a contingency fee, of what we get on your behalf. That means you are not out of pocket at all for anything. And if we go to trial and we lose, there's a little bit of an exception to that. But if we don't, let me put it to you this way, if we don't get money on your behalf, you don't owe us anything, because we haven't gotten anything. That's why I like to say we eat what we kill. We haven't killed anything, we're not eating. It costs you some time, but it costs us money. Now, give you an example, you know, just for fun, we can go here for a second. Your average employment case, to get it to trial, is probably gonna be anywhere between $20,000 to $40,000 in costs. Filing a lawsuit is gonna be about $500. Deposition is probably gonna be about $2,000. In a big employment situation, you might have 5 to 10 depositions. You hire experts. Your expert's probably gonna get a $5,000 retainer. They're probably gonna get paid $500 an hour or more. We do all of that ahead. Now, that being said, if we get something on your behalf, we get that back. And so, this is important, not to get too deep, but cost analysis is really, really important. This is one of the things that we will talk to you about all the time. So those of you that didn't really go to law school, but you want to bang on people in legal cases, I know who you are, because I was related to some of y'all. I love you, okay? But let me explain something to you. If your case is worth $150,000 at best, soaking wet, and I can get you 100 now with no costs expended, you are better off than taking a risk that 2 to 3 years down the road, you'll get the same 100 to 150,000. Because if time is money And risk is a real thing. You could go down the road, get the same $150,000, but you've got $30,000 in costs, and you're paying me 40% instead of 33%. By the way, most of the time, our contingency fee is 33%. Once we get closer to trial, it's 40%. So, doing the math, if I get you $100,000 right now, and you've got $2,000 in costs, I've settled a couple things that are pre-litigation or early litigation where the costs were $2,000 or less. I got the client $150,000 to $160,000. They paid us a third, reimbursed the the $2,000 in costs, and everybody rode off into the sunset. Everybody went to Disneyland. Okay? Now, if I go down the road and your case is maybe not worth a whole lot more than that, not that it doesn't have merit. I'm not saying that you don't have merit. I'm not saying that what you say didn't happen to you happened to you. I'm not saying that. But we take a risk down the road that you don't come out as well, even if you end up with the same number. Now, there's an exception to that, and again, not trying to get too deep. Certain cases in employment law have attorney's fee exposure where the judge can actually give an attorney's fee award on top of what the jury gives you, and you get the same percentage out of all of that. So if that goes well, that's fine, but we don't know for 2 to 3 years, and a lot of stuff can happen in the meantime. And so when you come to me, I'm going to give you the real deal about what all of that looks like. A lot of folks at the very beginning of a case are very gung-ho about going all the way, and that's all fine and good and well. But if your case, some things that can make your case worse, a bad deposition, a good deposition can make your case better, can make it worth more. And we're always assuming, by the way, that the other side actually has the money. That's the other thing. When there's insurance coverage involved, they usually do. Corporations, companies, things like that. Individual X that you sued, I've got one case right now where the lady is in-home health care, and the guy with his wife in the next room tried to sexually assault this woman. And the coverage might not come through on the house because we're going under the homeowners. If the coverage doesn't come through on the house, my dad used to tell me, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So if your case is worth $150, if there's nobody there to pay it, now what? So, but if the policy is 50, like in a car case, I don't usually do the personal injury, but there's a car case and your case is worth 100, 150, whatever else, and the coverage is there, great. So we're looking at coverage too, and sometimes depending on what's happening, another thing, a lot of sometimes employers don't have what they call employment practices liability coverage. That's what covers them when an employee sues. There are many employers that have commercial coverage but do not have EPLI because they don't know to ask for it, they don't know about it, and they don't add it as an extra. They're not required to have it like you're required to have car insurance. So all of those things are going to figure in. The percentage, what we think your case is potentially worth. We're constantly assessing cases. I've taken cases that I thought were $100,000 cases. When I started, I got one right now I'm thinking of that I think might be a $500,000 case now. But part of it has to do with what's happened since then. But I always caution about a cost analysis because guaranteed money is better than a shot that becomes no money. I have rarely seen it. People start this way, but they don't always end this way. It's not about the money. I want to get everything I can. I want these people to be held accountable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now you get down the road and it's a little bit of a different situation. And you found out that actually it probably is about the money. If you've got a larger purpose that you want to work for, great. Let's not make you working on that purpose contingent on the litigation, on the result of litigation. Let's get out of Dodge. If we can for you, we can get you a good result. Great, let's do that. I'm not saying that I'm gun shy about bringing the case to trial. What I'm saying is I have to see with these eyes because most people aren't willing to shake my hand and give me hugs when we've gone 3 years and they don't get any money. That's what Gwen Guthrie said. She said, no romance without finance, right? When we're in court, on some level, it's accountability, but it's about what's the best way to show accountability? Money. It could be injunctive relief, too, where you force them to do something, force them to change something. But our fees tend to be a third, as well as the costs on top. Okay, and so we're going to be careful about what costs we expend on your behalf, but when we take on your case, We believe that whatever it takes, we're willing to pay, et cetera, and that's why we've taken on the case. Sometimes if somebody got fired, they get a better job tomorrow. They got hurt feelings, but they don't have a big case. Why? Because they've mitigated their damages. They're actually doing better than they were. So are you do something related to you being fired that called you out of your name or whatever else? Potentially, but is it a case that I would necessarily litigate? Probably not, because we're doing a cost analysis on it. And by the way, the other thing that I will say is, if you can hire an attorney and keep them all the way throughout, if you know, I ask people all the time, what is your goal? Your goal is suing the case if you need to. Most of the time, I'll try to resolve it before I have to sue it. If your goal is to go all the way throughout and I'm not there with you, I'm not going to take the matter. If you can get with somebody and go all the way through, it shows inconsistency, and frankly, it shows weakness for the other side to see 2 or 3 different lawyers if you can avoid it. That is one thing. They'll look at it, their spidey senses will tingle, oh, there's trouble in paradise. This lawyer doesn't like the case. There's something the matter with it. Don't pay him anything. A lot of guys like to hop, and switch lawyers like they switch girlfriends, and it's not good for your case. If you can avoid it, it makes you look worse. Okay, that's the long version of that answer. But other questions? Okay, hopefully on our site, I want to thank all of our marketing team that are putting everything together. You guys always make us look real good. So I want to thank you guys, marketing team. Hopefully our distinguished leader, Devin, is having a great time out camping, which is cool. We told her that we would be okay. There should be information in what you watch that shows how to get in contact with us. Let people know as well that this will be available as an on-demand product. People can come to it anytime and get the information. We're at McCuneWright.com, McCunewright.com. We're at ProSeLegal.com, ProSeLegal.com. You can look me up, Attorney Joe Richardson. It should pop up. Or if you're looking for an attorney, you can always look them up by the State Bar. If you spelled it right and you didn't find them, then they might not be an attorney. It's a cool joke. I'll close with it real fast. I was watching Sanford & Son once. I don't know if anybody remembers Sanford & Son. And there was a guy they were telling, Fred Sanford had a legal problem. And they were one of his friends, it was Rollo or somebody, saying, hey, man, you got to talk to this guy. He can really help you. He's really great, man. This lawyer is fantastic, whatever else. And so they bring him in, and they ask him, they say, so are you a lawyer? Getting excited. And he goes, well, that depends on who you ask. And he said, then they asked him, well, who would say that you're not a lawyer? He said, the state of California. And with that, we're out. Thank you very much. James, do you want to close the word with us? You want to say anything in closing?
Yeah, that's not Patron.
Can the church say amen? Thanks, guys.
You know how we do it. Joe could have fooled me.